Okay, my dear students, now let us try to understand about characteristics of electrolytes. Characteristics of electrolytes. These topics are very easy if you understand the concept. Okay, you don't have to memorize anything. Okay, memorize does not mean that without I'm not telling you to not memorize. Memorization is very important for a student, okay, and for seeking knowledge, but that does not mean you don't understand. If you are memorizing anything without understanding, that is nonsense, worthless. So I'm telling that if you understand anything, it becomes very easy to memorize. Okay. So what are the characteristics of electrolytes? Sorry, electrolysis. Characteristics of electrolysis, not electrolytes. इलेक्ट्रोलिसिस के क्या खास खसूसियात हैं, स्पेशलिटीज़ हैं, वो हम लोग पढ़ेंगे अभी. ओके, the first point is that the passage of electricity through an electrolyte causes the positive ions cations to migrate towards the cathode and the negative ions to migrate towards the anode. Very simple. So क्या खासियत है? नंबर वन खासियत ये है कि cations move towards the cathode of an electrolyte and anions will move towards the anode. So when electricity passes through an electrolyte, through an electrolyte, what happens? The cations, they move towards the cathode, and the anions of the electrolyte, they move towards the anode. And you already know that. What is the sign of the cathode? What is the sign of the cathode, my dear students? The sign of the anions are negative, and the sign of the cathode is negative. Okay. The sign of cation is positive. The sign of an anode is positive. So cations are positively charged ions, they move towards the cathode, which are negatively charged electrode, and you know negative charges attract each other. Anions are the negatively charged particles, and they move towards the positively charged electrodes. Negative opposite charge attract each other. This is the first characteristics of electrolysis. Now let us have the second one, the second point. The second point is that, my dear students, the number of electrons gained by the anode equal to the number of electrons given by the cathode. Okay, this I will explain when I will explain you that electrolysis a redox process. You will understand better, but for the sake of understanding, I'm making you explain in simple words. Okay, and that is the number of electrons. The number of electrons gained. Okay, the number of electrons gained by anode. So what happens? Anode, it gains electrons, and you will understand how does it gain electron, is equal to the number of electrons donated or given or loosed, by cathode. So cathode is a generous thing, generous guy. It donates. And anode is acquisitive guy. It gains. Okay, it takes the electrons, and cathode, it donates the electron. You will understand how does an anode and cathode gain and donate electron respectively. I will make you understand, don't worry, but just for the sake of understanding, keep this in your mind. Okay, the third point under the characteristics of electrode is that the product of electrolysis are formed at the anode. Very interesting. Yes, so product of the reaction, you know reaction has products and reactants. So product is always formed at where it always forms at the anode. The products are formed at the anode. Yes, the products are formed at the anode and cathode itself. So the products of electrolysis are formed at the anode and the cathode itself. Yes, they are formed at the anode and cathode. The products are formed at the anode and cathode. You will understand what are the products and how are they formed when I will teach you about the different electrolytic processes. Okay, itself, since the exchange of electrons takes place only at the surface of the electrode. As I said you in the second point, that anode, it gains electrons, and cathode, it gives electrons. Okay, it donates electrons, and that is why the product of that process, that electrolytic reaction, is formed at anode and cathode itself. Okay, this is the third characteristic. The fourth characteristic electrolysis is only hydrogen gas and metals are liberated at the cathode and hence are called electropositive elements. Very simple. Why? Because cathode, it attracts the cations, and you know that cations are what? Positive in nature. So all the electropositive elements will get attracted towards the cathode, including the metals. They are positive, they form positive cations. Hydrogen also forms positive cations, so they will migrate towards the cathode, and thereby they will get discharged, or they will get discharged there, and hence they are known as electropositive elements. So including hydrogen, all the cations, metals, they migrate towards the cathode, and hence are called electropositive elements. Only non-metals are liberated at the anode and are called electronegative elements. Similarly, the fifth point is just an opposite of the fourth point. That is, what happens? The anode, it attracts the anions, and you know that anions are negative charge. The non-metals, yes, what are negatively charged particles? Non-metals, Cl minus, SO2 minus, O2 minus, these are all non-metals, and the positively charged particles were metals or hydrogen, okay, including hydrogen. Okay, so they will move towards cathode, and these non-metallic anions will move towards anode, and thereby they are called electronegative particles, electronegative elements. Why? Because they are moving towards the negatively charged electrodes. That's why they are known as electronegative elements. The sixth point under the characteristic of electrolysis is the mass of the substance produced at an electrode during electrolysis is proportional to the quantity of electricity passing through the electrolysis. Okay, so this is the Faraday's law. Faraday said that the mass of product or substance produced at the electrodes, that is at the cathode and anode, is proportional to the quantity of electricity passing through it. Okay, so what amount of electricity passing through it will judge the mass of product formed. If a large amount of electricity is passing, the mass of the product will be higher. If the amount of electricity is lower, the mass of the product will be lower as well. Okay, that directly proportional, okay, according to Faraday's law. I hope you understood this. Okay, the seventh point I will make you understand in the next video, that is electrolysis is a redox reaction. I will give you an example and you will understand everything, and you will understand how anode gains and cathode loses electron.